I think the key opportunity that this presents is just to kind of get the message out there, and it gives us an opportunity to see more disabled people in public talking about their experiences, and that's hugely valuable. I think despite the fact that 1 in 5 of the population have a disability, we're very often not seen, we're quite often forgotten about when we discuss issues around getting into work and employment. So actually just giving us the opportunity to get out there and talk about our experiences and how we can improve things, I think that's massively important. So non-workplace barriers are many and varied. It can go from the practical in terms of just getting to work, like relying on public transport in every city in the UK is hugely challenging when you have a disability. Just trying to get around and get into the workplace can be really difficult. But actually one of the big challenges has been people's attitudes. I'm quite lucky as a doctor, a lot of the people I work with have disabilities or health conditions, but actually sometimes my colleagues have not been the most welcoming. I've had some really quite negative comments, some questioning whether I should even be in the workplace. And it can be really hurtful, it can be really frustrating, it's not great for the mental health. But I think by being out there, by being seen, by getting on with my life as a normal person, it hopefully reinforces the message that actually we're just as entitled to be in the workplace as everybody else. And if anything, our disabilities, I think, are a bit of an asset to any workforce. I think that the more disabled graduates we get into leadership positions, the more it helps graduates of the future come through the system, because role models are hugely important. I often refer to myself in my chair as an actual role model, because seeing somebody who's been through the situation, who's made it to that stage, it lets you know that it's possible. Sometimes, as a woman in employment, we talk a lot about breaking through the glass ceiling, but if anything, the ceiling's titanium when you're a disabled woman. It's almost impossible sometimes. So to be able to see that somebody has is hugely important. And for disabled graduates as a whole, they've graduated in spite of disability, in spite of a society that is not designed with us in mind. They've overcome huge challenges most of their colleagues won't have had to in order to graduate. That gives them unique experience, that makes them an asset, that gives them life skills that are really valuable in the workplace and that employers should not only see but kind of grab at, because I think we're hugely beneficial to have. I think it's a really interesting time to be disabled in the UK. We're starting to see it being normalised. We're starting to see more disabled people out there. You've got some amazing things like the last leg, coverage of the Paralympics. We're starting to see disabled people talking about things other than being disabled, which is so refreshing. Often when I'm asked to go and talk about things, it's always, can you come and talk about your disability or working with a disability? And actually, I've got lots of other things I want to talk about, like Brexit and the NHS and health and social care. And actually, very little of that has got anything to do with my disability. I just happen to be doing it while sat in a wheelchair. And I think society's starting to see that. I think we're starting to see these messages coming through that we're good for more than just talking about how hard it is to be disabled all the time. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time. I think there's a long way to go. But yeah, it's quite an exciting time to be in the disability community at the moment. So I'm a doctor in the NHS, which is a very interesting job market. We don't kind of get recruited in a normal way, so there's no interviews or anything like that, which is quite good. I actually started medical school able-bodied, became disabled while I was there, graduated in a wheelchair, which was quite exciting. And as such, I'd kind of had a bit of a run up into it is the wrong phrase, but I'd been able to kind of get used to being in the NHS environment in my chair as a student. So when I entered the workforce, I knew a little bit about what it was going to be like and how it's going to work. On the whole, people have been really supportive, but it does feel, as a doctor, when you're moving around jobs every 4 to 6 months, you can feel like you're reinventing the wheel quite literally every single time, and having to introduce yourself to a new team and work out new facilities. It can be a bit exhausting. It's stressful enough moving jobs, but doing it on wheels is particularly exciting. I think seeing other people like me doing the job. So a lot of what I do now, I work clinically 60%, but a lot of what I do outside of that is highlighting that we have lots of doctors with disabilities in the NHS, but nobody knows we're there, including other doctors with disabilities. So I regularly get people approaching me on Twitter from around the world saying, I really want to be a doctor, but I'd always kind of been told it wasn't something I could ever do, that no medical school would take me in. All of these like worries that they have because they've simply never seen anyone like them before. So a lot of what I do, I see as kind of awareness raising and advocacy for other people who might want to work in healthcare, because I think as patients ourselves, we have a lot to bring because we get it. We've spent time on the other side of the stethoscope, and that makes us hugely valuable in terms of patient care and support. I'd say it can be scary as hell, and it may seem scary as hell, but reach out and try and find other people who look like you, move like you, act like you, because we are out there and we're already in the workforce and we want to support you. I've been so lucky that when I became disabled, I had people around me who was like, right, you need to meet so-and-so, she's really fantastic, and I was able to kind of get my own role models. So do reach out. Don't write anything off as an option, because if somebody had told me 10 years ago I'd be able to be a functioning GP in a wheelchair, I would have laughed at them. But it's possible, and the more you try and the more we keep challenging the boundaries, the easier it's going to be to break them in the future. So just go for it and do reach out and ask for help when you need it. I'd like to see more people like me across society in every area. I'd like to see people like me talking about things that aren't their disability. I'd like to see us being invited on to speak on the news or whatever about something completely separate, because by normalising us like that, it allows us into other conversations. It allows us to participate in society as a whole and to talk about something other than accessing buses and lack of drop curbs and toilets. You know, we've got so much more to talk about as a society, and I think the one thing I'd love to see in the next 10 years is people like me being given the opportunity to do that.